I'm Brent BUDSBERG and this is SHANNA MCCAW. We do a lot of different types of work. We kind of think of ourselves primarily as sculptors, but our work branches out from there in many different directions. We do a lot of work based on history and ancestry and sort of delving into different ways that people perceive the past.
They're kind of explorations of the character that I've been developing a little bit, who is loosely based on my ancestors. I don't know a lot about some of my distant ancestors, and I feel like I'm kind of mining very ancient ancestors for this character. It sort of aligns with this concept that we're creating a history. It's an imagined history, and so that concept of an inversion seems to be kind of a natural parallel.
Well, and this room has sort of become this strange room that doesn't really adhere to the normal rules of reality.
No. One of the things that tends to be a theme that comes up over and over is this idea that history is this really malleable, or we sometimes call it a plastic medium because we think of it as a sculptural medium almost, that sometimes in bad ways, the history is manipulated to change stories and make, historical facts become lost in time.
Kind of intentionally leave these things open-ended, and I think with most of our work there's something familiar there that the viewer can relate to. So I think that in that sense the viewer is generally drawn into it and brings something of their own experience to it, but then we tend to flip it on its head to a degree and leave something for the viewer to puzzle over.
Yeah, absolutely. Open-ended narratives.
Yeah.
My name is Michels. I am a painter generally. I'm an artist. I paint objects, and I've been working for 50 years as an artist painter. I don't invent any colors, but I do manipulate my colors into a greater vibrancy. I balance my color and my patterns because really they're found in nature. The human eye only sees really so much, and everything is just layers and layers of patterns and textures and colors, one on top of the other. For my work, I try to embellish what's already in nature and bring that into my work by adding layers and layers and layers, and then pulling them together with a particular, it might be a color, it could be a black line, it could be, in this sense, it's going to be the browns and the blacks of the leopard print that will pull all the colors together. I believe in painting and art as a spiritual quest as well. When I lost my eyesight, I couldn't no longer see outside of myself, so I was forced to look within myself. And that really was the inspiration that changed my life and changed me as a person, to really want to not waste 1 second more and just try to have this quest to create beauty. I do believe that the more I paint, the more of a domino effect it has on the world in which I live in. And so maybe, just maybe, when I die, I can leave this place a better place than when I came here. And that's really my inspiration.
My name is TODD MROZINSKI, and I'm an image maker. I'm really looking and studying trees and seeing the way that they grow and the patterns of growth, and to study that and to kind of become one with that through doing the work, I feel that I understand my own cycles better. The work is really built in stages. I do a lot of subtraction, adding, a lot of erasing. The pieces that are in the hotel, one is charcoal with water added, so it kind of turned into an ink. The other is actually ink. And in that one, I really used a tool to really rough up the paper a lot so that it really felt like leaves. I hope that they will feel inspired to love nature and look at nature and look at the beauty in the mark and how the work is actually made.
My name is Ashley Town. I am the owner of Bayview Printing, so I'm a letterpress design and printer. I'm drawn to printing for a lot of reasons, but I think most of all the tactility and the physicality. So the fact that I can actually hold letter forms in my hands when I'm making something, there's this connection to language and materiality, and then there's the production quality of kind of putting ink to paper. So actually setting type, locking it up in a press, inking up by hand, and then like pulling those prints one at a time, one color at a time. I think there's that there's a lot of value for me in the sense of like accomplishment. Initially, even in the sketching phase, we're kind of thinking of how do we play with that light? So can we play with like white ink white ink on a dark surface, or using a negative image, so we're kind of like cutting letter forms out of the shade almost to see light shining through there. So I think one of the interesting things about choosing letter forms here is that I like to think about the stories behind them. You know, like how many times has this been printed? Where did this come from? Who's printed it before? And then what is it, how am I going to use it in this particular instance? Anything that can be gleaned from looking at the shades, maybe it's like our connection to language and letter forms and a printing methodology that most people say is dead, that absolutely positive is still thriving.
So my name is Jason Yee, and I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I delve into a lot of different media and materials based on the ideas that comes to my head. The materials that I tend to choose are sort of easily accessible materials, things that you buy from stores and hardware stores and even grocery stores. And I really like working with materials like that because I think it just kind of demystifies what art can be or could be. What's most important for me as an artist is for the visual, the form, to be the sort of the initial draw. I want there to be a recognition of some of the sort of sensibilities of texture, what the mysteries of what material could be. Maybe even looking at the scale and perhaps seeing scale that defies what that visual scale may represent. A couple years ago, my mom passed away, and I started to kind of think about her history, her personal history. And she grew up in Korea, and she would tell me of her stories of Korean War and these different sort of tragic events that happened to her throughout her life. And one of the stories that she told me was sort of the bombings that she witnessed as a young girl, young child. And that really kind of stuck with me. So I started looking at the news, and there are lots of stories back a couple years ago of all these missile launches that were happening out of North Korea. And I was torn looking at the missiles and smokes because in one sense, as a visual artist, I was aesthetically drawn to the smoke, the certain visual beauty of the smoke and what it can do as a phenomenon. The idea of dissipation into thin air, it appearing in one sense and disappearing in a few minutes later. And I really enjoyed that part of it, but at the same time, looking at the missiles, it just reminded me of my parents' sort of experience growing up in Korea. So I really enjoyed, or really kind of wanted to investigate that sort of conflicting ideas of what that missile could represent for me, and the aftermath of that missile being the sort of the devastation, the toll it takes on human beings, but at the same time, the beauty, the visual beauty of the plumes.
My name is Benjamin Fairley, and I am a visual artist. My inspiration comes from, a lot of it comes from music and my family and just human interaction, I guess. I'm a people watcher, so I just love watching people interact, and that's why I'm so drawn to faces and people. Well, I hope the viewer walks away with a smile, and that's about it. There's nothing, you know, behind my paintings or my artwork. There's no message. It's just art for art. My work is very, very textural. I want people to want to touch it, because when I was younger, I've always wanted to understand the feelings behind it. My work is all experimental, for sure. I just like to see what happens, like science. It's asking myself, well, what would happen if I did this to this particular object? Like, I just come in here and I turn the music on and just let go.